Okay, great. All right, good. We're all set up. So we'll do a quick overview about story trading. Then we'll get into the presentation with Larry, Q&A after that, and we'll go over some upcoming events we just added to our schedule. Quick disclaimer first, story trading is not an investment advisor. Investing in securities involves significant risk of loss. We will be recording this presentation and posting it at some point up on YouTube for other people. So what does story trading do? We level the playing field with Wall Street insiders through crowdsourced collaboration in order to uncover the hidden story behind the trade. And we also offer access to management through our VIP plan. Typically, these sorts of presentations are only available to our paid subscription plan. For today, we did open this up if you're not a VIP member. We are building our own app as well. Right now, all the collaboration happens on WhatsApp and Zoom. We'll be building our own app for a July release. So that's going to be exciting for you. Real quick, before we go into our featured presentation for today, performance overview. Average pick is now up 79% over a 4.6 month holding period. 28 out of 32 picks have been profitable. 9 out of 32 picks up over 100%. We actually just published today. Our performance is on the website. If you go to our website, you can just click on performance, and you can track how our VIP picks are doing. Just as a point of clarification, today's pick is not a VIP pick unless someone from the community decides to present it as such. It's just an introduction to Rewalk by the CEO, Larry Jasinski. Real quick, before we pass it over to Larry, I'm going to launch a poll. We can ask a question before and after his presentation. There it is, just to get an idea of people's familiarity with Rewalk Robotics, and also so we can assess for the company how helpful this presentation was for everyone. The poll should be up on your screen right now. Number 1, how familiar are you with the Rewalk story? 1 through 5, 5 being the highest. Are you currently a shareholder of Rewalk? All of this information is collected anonymously. Yes or no. If you are a shareholder, are you at maximum allocation? So just take a few seconds. We'll be providing this data to the company.
Hey, Ben, can you put it up again? I didn't get it.
The poll?
Yeah, if you can.
It's running now. If you don't get it, I'm not sure why. Nothing I can do. All right, we're going to close out the poll here. We got 72% of people who participated on that. Okay. All right. So with that, we're going to turn it over to Larry. Here's a quick chart you can look at. And Larry, you can share your screen now. I'll stop my share so you can have full. There it is, actually already shown.
Okay.
Yep.
So I've still got your poll up. Okay, I can close that. I did. Good.
Yep. And also just to thank you to Jennifer Walsh, is it, from Investor Relations, who set this up for us. Thank you.
Okay, first, Ben, thank you very much for the setting this up today. It's appreciated. It is the first time I've been asked to replace a happy hour. I'm not sure that's a very good designation, but I'll do my best. And to everybody who's joined today, thanks for taking a few minutes. This is a fun thing to talk about because of what it does for human life. And the business case is something that I believe is compelling, but requires some patience, in all honesty. I did see, from the poll, roughly 60% of you were 1 and 2, so not particularly familiar with us. I'm going to stay at a pretty high level for this, for about a 15 to 20-minute presentation at the most. And then I think I can go a lot deeper into questions for people who would like that, and I'd appreciate the questions. So, this introductory slide, human and robotic intersection, there's been a lot of discussion of AI, robotics, battery sensors, and things have changed dramatically in the past 20 years. This came about primarily from the advent of better software, better batteries, better sensors, and it's come a long way, and I'll talk about that story in a minute. But from a business end, it's this phrase I have right here where I say underway. Markets spring into being when economic actors shift resources to that firm solution. The reality is, as well as this product changed human life and improved health, we have been limited in the challenges of getting the product paid for, and paid for by insurance coverage in our primary markets. And that is finally starting to change. And that's the biggest mover in the company. The question is how long it's going to take and how far it's going to move. So let's go to the company first, and then we'll talk about those factors that really drive it. The mission of the company is to change and improve the quality of life for individuals with disability. Primarily, it's the paralyzed population, but we also have products for others. But that's what we're known best for from the original origin of the company. And we're doing this through the development of robotic technologies. Now, if I had to kind of describe what do we do, what are our products, and what are our markets, this is a target market slide. It's a good way to look at it in terms of potential, but execution against it is the bigger question. So the top of the slide is represents someone who has a significant mobility impairment. They cannot walk at all. They're completely paralyzed. The bottom is a mild mobility. It can be someone with osteoarthritis in the knee that is so painful they just can't walk well. It could be stroke, things of that type. The blue that you see on the ovals, these are not market size because some of them would just dominate the slide. Our current products, the yellow are products that we look at as things we can bring to market in both the short and long term, depending on the product. To the left, you see institutional use. To the right, you see home use. So where is most of our activity looking forward? It's looking at home use. How can we have someone be, you think of, you've had an injury and you go to rehab. Well, this is a step past rehab. This is regaining elements of your life. And you aren't going to do that in a rehab center. You're going to do that at home. So that's where most of our focus is, but that's also so disruptive and innovative. It's not the area where a lot of payment takes place. The size of these markets are available on our website, and I would answer in more detailed questions when someone were asking about business plans. But they're enough to justify the investment for the company anyway. So let's talk about what the company has for products. I'll describe our four main products. You can see the picture on the page now is a gentleman walking out in a hotel in the Boston area, someone working from a stroke to the right of that, and a couple of other therapies that we're doing for well-being in the lower part of the slide. I'll describe each of those in a minute. Primary focus of the company, the origins of our company are part of why we've got the best available and one of two major products available. A gentleman by name of Dr. Amit Gopher, no different than any of us probably on this call, was out with his kids on an all-terrain vehicle. He had an accident, hit his head against a tree, and became quadriplegic. He hated the lifestyle. And literally the first working system that was functional was developed at his home in his garage. And that's the origin of the company. It's a particularly good inventor who also became paralyzed and understood the problem of what it meant to his life and others. He really had a lot of the intricacies of what makes this work better understood, I think, than many others could have possibly had. So what does this device do? It allows someone who has a complete spinal cord injury, who is paralyzed typically from mid-chest down, it's from T6 down to L2. It has had FDA clearance for several years, since 2014. It was the first product we went through as a de novo. It's a 6th generation device, so we've iterated it as we've learned along the way. This number is probably approaching about 700 now, and we've got about 6 years of data on it in the field. This number should be bigger. This is thousands of patients because not all of them bought a system. Some are in rehab centers. But the insurance side is the key thing. Reimbursement coverage is the defining element for the future. We presently are covered in the Veterans Administration in the US. We've gained full coverage in Germany over the past few months. Italy has workman's comp, and we're working very hard with CMS as we've recently gotten a code issued and are now working towards coverage. We do have good IP in the product line, but the most important thing is we can start to get it paid for, I think, within the next 1 to 1.5 years in the United States at a high level. About 56% of all people that are paralyzed wind up in Medicare or Medicaid because of what it's done to the economic side of their life. A second product for spinal cord injury is this is a functional product. It allows you to walk down the street, walk around your kitchen, walk at work, go out for a walk in the park. You can walk on grass, sand that's firm at least, pavement, ramps, basically anywhere you can go within reason. This product is more akin to exercise equipment in your home. And for many people that have a spinal cord injury, exercise is essential to maintaining both cardiovascular as well as health with your bones. And this device is used by, you pull it up in your wheelchair, you can put your legs into this device, you put on FES, which is functional electrical stimulation pads, and that helps fire your legs in order to be able to exercise. It's a device that is, many of our patients will have both of these. They'll use this for home exercise like you would a treadmill. And then when they want to go out, either whether it's socially or work or for exercise, they would use their Rewalk. This has a contract in place for the VA. It's a new product for us. We've had it for about 9 months, but with COVID, we really haven't been able to sell it because it requires at least some demo activity. The second category of products we have are for stroke and other applications, but the soft suit you see in the picture to the left side of the screen here, a set of cables, something going down into the shoe, and something that is lifting the leg. I'll describe it in more detail on the next page, but this is a way to lift the foot and allow you to walk normally after a stroke. And it's really looking at doing intensive repetitive gait training to regain your walking speed and a normal walking pattern. It does have FDA and CE clearance. There are some codes for it, although they don't pay that well, but size and weight is appropriate for this patient group. The Meditech products primarily deal with balance and range of motion, also stroke patients and challenges for them. Again, we took this product on about the middle of last year, but with COVID, we haven't been able to demo it a lot. So that is a product that we see becoming active as the vaccine allows the market to open up a little bit more later this year. So a little more detail on the Rewalk system. This guy was injured in the Goldman Sachs building on the 9/11 site when a crane dropped 6 tons of steel on the trailer he was working in. He was one of the architects for the rebuild. Folded him in half, and he's a complete paraplegic from upper chest area down. And you can now, this is him walking. And when you look at them, look at 1 foot on the ground, 1 foot in the air, 1 foot crutch on the ground for balance, and one getting ready for the next step. He's basically going to walk with the same walking pattern that you or I would on toe to heel patterns. There's no robotic motion to this. It's natural gait. Why do you need a product of this type, and where does it really help? If I ask someone, what are the best 5 things about this product? They never say walking. It doesn't make the top 5. Number 1 is their bowel and urinary tract function becomes normal. Once you're upright, you're getting peristaltic motion. You can go to the bathroom in a regular, shorter cycle. You don't have to worry about accidents in public. Relative to urinary tract infections, the number 1 cause of death in this population. Once you're standing upright more and moving around, the frequency of infections has gone down dramatically. Bone density is a problem. You see an astronaut goes into space in 6 weeks, they worry about some bone loss. When you're not putting weight on your bones, it affects it. And we have shown in some of the literature the impact on bone mass. You lose lean tissue, you gain fat tissue. About obesity rate in this population is about 40%. Some of that weight gain results in insulin problems, diabetes, and heart disease. All these things cost a lot. If you look at the average healthcare costs, just for hospitalization and other treatments, $2.4 million for someone injured at age 25. Average age is about 29. Someone a little older, it's still pretty high, about 1.6. So walking again is obviously a good component. It seems logical when your doctor tells you to get off the couch and exercise. It's even more so for a paralyzed person. We have videos on our website, which is just www.rewalk.com. It also has all of our up-to-date information. With Zoom, I don't always find videos going as well, so I'm going to describe the product just a little more. For this particular silhouette, you see inside the shoe, there's a little foot plate. So that's what the whole system stands on. The user doesn't care about the weight, doesn't matter to him. There's a motor on the calf and a motor on the hip. This one powers at the knee, this one powers at the hip. And then there's a software package, battery, and small computer in the backpack. So this is powered at all 6 joints to give you relatively normal walking pattern. It's the gait is entirely the same, as you'll see that on the videos. What you will see is you'll walk at about 2/3 the speed, or about 1.2 meters a second, for a paralyzed person. Good enough to get across the city street. And that was an FDA requirement that we could show if you were in New York City and had to get across Fifth Avenue, that you can go fast enough to get there before the next taxi comes. This is a person early in training. You see a PT helping the person stand. This is the middle center picture. On the bottom, you see someone walking in a close assist as this person's learning balance. It takes about 15 sessions to 30 sessions, depending on the person, to gain those skills. On the right side of this picture are people that have finished their training and are living their life with their own devices. On the bottom right, you see first a gentleman with his son just going out for a walk and talking, and then you see him going down a flight of stairs that is in that area. The picture above is in Boston Harbor. And as you can see, 2 Rewalkers, one who is one leg and the other leg's a prosthetic, as well as one of the other individuals who I had mentioned before, simply walking along outside. The device itself, I covered some of the things. There's all 6 joints are going. This fits precisely to the individual. If you think of how a ski boot or something can change in sizing to match with the settings, this you set a few different places when you first put it on the patient. Because of the mechanisms of it, there's a large number of them, but you want to align the joints as evenly as possible within 0.5 centimeter or less. That allows the natural gait, that allows the safest use. Durability of the product, the older ones are well over 1 million steps that we have out there. We've had people do the London Marathon twice, the New York City Marathon, the LA Marathon, Charleston Marathon, and a bunch of other 10Ks. The device is workable in everyday life. We've got a good network of global training centers. And importantly, if this isn't working, you've got to be able to get it fixed quickly. So we have a national field-based team in the US and Germany, and then agents in the other countries are in to manage for training, to manage for service, and to manage for helping you with payment during the process. There's a good amount of functional literature. I won't go through this page in detail. This is important towards reimbursement. There's also a large randomized clinical study coming out before too long here to be published later this year. These are some of the smaller ones, but you're looking at improved health outcomes. What has it done for these individuals, and safety and feasibility? The FDA required the feasibility. The health here have allowed us to get the insurance coverage that we've gained in key markets. To give you a sense of where we are today, the United States, basically there's about 300,000 people that are paralyzed. About 1/3 of those meet all the medical criteria. We have a few other criteria. At the end of the day, the United States has a realizable market of about 100,000 people, and over half of those are covered by Medicare, Medicaid. So us gaining a Medicaid code, which was issued in October 1st of this year, it took effect, was particularly important. That will get us to the largest patient population. A code is not coverage. So we have a code now. That's the first step. Getting coverage is the step we're working through now. Germany is a little bit ahead of the US, and we already have full coverage for anybody injured at work, school, or commuting accidents. That's the BG. And then we have the SHI, which is statutory, and PHI, which is public and private insurers in Germany that have completed contracts. We'll have about 75% of the population covered by the end of about the first quarter this year. Most of these have already been announced. And this will get a good block of patients for us as well. You'll see our revenue in 2021 affected more by this than the US. So where do we stand with CMS? This is a good way to kind of look at it across the years. The creation, refinement, CE, FDA periods were dated. We go back to 2015. Building data for approval has really been the mission for almost a 5-year cycle. We want a case-by-case approvals 198 times, but that's inefficient and difficult. We got a German code almost 3 years ago now. We got the CMS code last year. The application was here, the code is here. And the VA 4-year randomized study completed enrollment at the end of 2019. COVID has slowed down the release of the data because some of the follow-up was not completed due to COVID. That has to get settled, but we still expect that data to get published here in 2021. We've signed the majority of the German contracts. And as I said, the CMS code is now active. So the factors are shifting the right direction for this product. So I want to switch to the second major group, stroke. This product is a partnership with our company with Harvard University, with the School of Engineering. The Wyss Institute is an operating entity that is supports Harvard or is funded by Harvard. This product is, there is a foot plate in the shoe. And if any of you ride a bicycle and pull the brake or handle that cable that is used, that's a Bowden cable. Those cables do what it has on the side is PF assist and DF assist. That's plantar flexion, propulsion going forward, dorsiflexion, lifting the foot up to clear your foot for the next step. There's a sensor. You see these red dots on each leg. Those sensors, when the healthy foot will tell the right foot, the other foot, when to go to plantar flexion or dorsal flexion requirements to coordinate the two. And what this does is it normalizes gait pattern, gets you back to a normal walking speed and normal walking distances. The power is a small battery pack and motor on the hip here. The whole system weighs under 10 pounds. It is used on about 6 to 8 patients a day in a clinic. In the future, we have a design for home use, which is much smaller and lighter. We call it Reboot. You literally put it on like a boot. It's made for the individual patient. And this does the plantar flexion assist. And then we also have a hip version, which may well apply for Parkinson's and for multiple sclerosis. We're studying in that patient cohort now. I described a little bit of how it works. You can see where the cable is red. That's lifting this ankle as it's coming forward in the toes. But importantly, you can control this rather easily with a single PT. Most work now requires 2 PTs. With the advent of this unit, you generally can get to 1. These components give a normal pattern. They get a lot of data, which helps them on the reimbursement as well as planning for their patient. And they can control them rather easily on this little basically tablet phone, which they either hold in their hand or wear around their neck. Why is propedic propulsion so important? And there has been nothing ever developed for this prior. There are things called an AFO, a rigid device that keeps your toes from causing you to trip. But pushing off on your toes is a functional component of the force to walk. And repairing this has been found to be the most effective way to regain function post-stroke. Intensity of the sessions and length of the sessions do matter. And that's the more recent published data is showing the ability to regain those walking components and normal gait symmetry. In the market, you could use something like a Rewalk device, but it doesn't meet many of the restrictions. It's not built for this. Manual therapy is common today, but it doesn't do plantar flexion and it doesn't change the gait patterns in particular. There are some foot drop systems which do solve some of the problems, but again, there's no propulsion in this one. And some of the gait training devices, same thing, they're lacking them. So this fits ideally in the marketplace. We did launch this last summer or a little before that, and unfortunately the number of demos and use of the pattern was limited greatly with the clinics being limited access with COVID. Market size, I won't go into deep numbers here, but we're primarily aiming at the stroke clinics and centers in the US and Germany to start, and a few other places in Europe. That's roughly 2,000 centers. Eventually, you'll see us going to the home market, and there's some very large numbers there, but the key with that market will be getting them paid for, of course. So where does this company go for commercialization, and how do we get to enough revenue growth to properly project when we're at break even? And part of this path is getting the rigid exoskeleton, as you see at the bottom of this slide, being paid for. And that's been a much longer battle than I think many would have thought, but the healthcare system dynamics have been changing a lot in the past few years. Getting the stroke system on the market is particularly important to us. COVID has slowed this down. It will continue to hold it back because the capital budgets at hospitals have been affected. So this one may take a little longer, but the clinical data is doing what we thought. External products, you saw the two that we added relatively recently, and we have additional products we can bring to market. So we do see a path between the various things I described in terms of data, reimbursement, the efficiency of the same call point. We're going in to sell 4 devices in the same center. When you get a home use, you get trained in the clinic. And the new products are a combination of Harvard and other places we can go. But you can see where we've gotten today. Most of these products have moved along rather well. I opened up with a story about Dr. Gopher as a man who wanted to get some freedom back in his life. He's the gentleman you see in the wheelchair now. This Rewalk that you see in the background behind him is for someone who is a paraplegic. Dr. Gopher is a quadriplegic. We do have a version for the quadriplegic community, but it is not something we brought through for FDA clearance. And Dr. Gopher nonetheless participated in one of the races we did in New York City. This is over on the west side. And his electric wheelchair is faster than a Rewalker. He won the race that day, which was good. But you see a number of the members of the community that he enabled walking in this particular event. And I like to close and show that because of his influence on the lives of all these people that are affected by this. So that's a very quick summary of the company. But I think I can also help a lot understanding by answering specific questions that may have arisen as you listen to our background. So either by chat, I see a few things there. I don't know if any of those are relevant. Nope, nothing new there. Or if you can release, Ben, where people can speak, whichever method you wish.
Yep. Okay, great. So we're going to ask people to raise their hand, their digital hand, if they have a question, or put it into the chat room. So go ahead and start doing that. And while I start with a couple of questions of myself that I had myself here. Thank you for that presentation, by the way, Larry. So you mentioned the coverage in Germany, and I'm wondering, how long of a lag is there between getting that full coverage and seeing the revenue? What has to happen? What do you have to do on your end? And, have you already seen that impacting revenue in a meaningful way? If you can speak to that a little bit, and then, and is that might be a blueprint for what happens with Medicaid, right?
Yeah, the individual, from the time we sign the contract to the time that the revenue shows up and the patient has got their system at home, typically is between 6 and 9 months because of the qualifying cycle. You have to look at bone density and get all the proper analysis of the patient. Then they have to go through training. So most patients train in about a 3 to 6 month cycle between qualification and getting their training done. Some are shorter, but generally it's around 6 months before you'll see most revenue. On our contract specifically, most of those were signed in late 2019 and through the middle of 2020. So our coverage got interrupted because in terms of training by COVID, as that hit us in Q1 last year. We already had a good number of patients in training. Some of them were able to complete, some were not. Post-COVID is the probably more appropriate answer for you, is that it will average 6 months from a patient coming in to the time they could take one home. And we'll get a little more predictable at that point. And we think we're going to start seeing that in Q2 this year if the vaccine gets widely enough distributed.
Okay, great. I got a couple more before we open up. I see Ashley already has a question. We'll get to him shortly. I saw you had a press release that you paid off this Creos credit line, which I'm not sure what the balance was when he paid it off, but about a month prior, you did an $8 million raise. And I was just wondering what's going on there? Do you raise the money just to pay off that line, or what?
Well, that was originally a program for $20 million that we paid off on a monthly basis at $525,000 per month. So we've been paying it off for a few years. We paid it off early with the funds that were on hand, but that wasn't why we raised the money, because we had enough cash at that point, simply because it saved us about $150,000 to $200,000 in interest. And then next year that will reduce money that had been going out historically by, roughly a little over $6 million that we will not be paying against that loan now that it's completely paid. So we have no long-term debt at this point. Also importantly, tomorrow is our earnings call, so we can run through. We have brought down our overall burn rate as a lot of our heavy R&D and clinical spend has come down. So our burn rate is at a much lower level. And off the money that we have publicly announced, we ended the year with, actually we didn't put that up publicly yet. We will tomorrow morning. We have a pretty good runway right now, I guess is the best answer I can publicly give right now.
Okay, great. Ashley had a question about the competition, Exo, just differences, similarities to Exo.
Sure. The Exo is a particularly good product. It was designed for use in the clinic. And it is not uncommon, frankly, for someone to be trained in an Exo and go home in a Rewalk. So they're both good products. The difference being that ours was designed, and I read back to Dr. Gopher, he wanted something for everyday life. So you can use it at home, you can use it in the sidewalk, you can use it shopping, you can use it in social situations. The Exo product is only for clinic use. You can't take it home. It functionally isn't fast enough, can't deal with traffic and curbs, all those kinds of things. So they're both good products. One enables the other. Exo helps us in certain ways. Also, Exo has a broader indication. Their spinal cord injury was their original product design, but they also began using it for stroke and TBI. And they're a good product for early stage and significant stroke patients as well. So for the industry, you've got two very good companies here that we both have some of the same challenges, getting good things paid for.
Okay, great. Dave, we'll get to your question in a minute. I just wanted to circle back to a couple questions I had here. Can you speak to, I really don't know when you came on board, are you a founder, shareholder, how many shares do you have, at what price, and kind of what your personal goals are in terms of the company and the market cap or the share price kind of target you think you can get this company to?
Some of that I can't say because I'm sure I'd have one of my lawyers chasing me afterwards on forward-looking statements, but I'll answer most of them. First, my own background, I'm a medical device guy for my career. Most of it was Boston Scientific. I spent 17 years there. It was a small company when I started, only a little bigger than Rewalk is today. That's how small we were back in the mid-1980s. And I served in essentially every position in one of their divisions for peripheral vascular disease for over 17 years. And I ran the division at the end and did a lot of market development work and a lot of product development work. That was what I really enjoyed the most, even though at the end I was running a business as a whole. My preference was with those two areas. I did a couple of startups from that, one that was owned by the principals of Boston Scientific, which or at least partially owned. So that is what brought me to that particular one when I wanted to go back to more product development driven, and sold that company a couple of years later after making it profitable. And then had done one other startup, came to Rewalk roughly 9 years ago or 8 years ago. Actually, it's almost 9 now, just a couple months short. And in the beginning, we had an idea that Dr. Gopher had developed, and we have taken it through all the steps. What I expected to be a 5 to 7 year path is probably more a 7 to 10 year path, and that's just changes in market dynamics of what we've got, and maybe some things that were harder than we would have expected. Seems like the logic of paying for someone healthcare and allowing them to walk again wouldn't be that hard to prove, but a randomized clinical study will prove that. And that's what we have at the VA.
Okay, yeah, it looks like you actually just answered Dave Pierce's question about your work history and experience at Boston Scientific. Question from Dino: Any plans to relocate your team from Israel to the U.S.?
No, we have a team that is based in both places. Our headquarters for a lot of the operations are in Boston, particularly in the commercial side. But our R&D core is in Israel, and our operations core for production is in Israel. We are very happy with it there. It works very well. We have very good institutional talent that knows this segment. I think we lived on Zoom before we had to with the pandemic. We did it very well. So we're 4 or 5 years into that, and we travel back and forth. So we are a Israeli company that will have headquarters in both places. We also have an office in Berlin, Germany, because of the depth of our team there. We made that work, and it's reasonably efficient that way for the talent we have.
Okay, great. Going back to the question about revenue, that 6 to 9 month lag from revenue after you get coverage. I want to get an idea for what kind of event is going to be an inflection point for your company in terms of getting to that break-even point. Not necessarily a number, but what kind of event has to happen? Like, for example, if you get that Medicare, Medicaid coverage, do you think, wow, that's such a big event that 6 months later you're going to be a break-even company? Like, what sort of things need to happen to really be an inflection point for this company?
Well, two things really had to happen, and one has happened. It's German coverage being achieved at a high level. There's a second stage behind it. It's implementation. Implementation has been COVID interrupted, so I haven't proven it yet to myself or to the market. In the United States, we need a coverage policy at CMS and with some of the privates probably. The cycle of that I can't quite predict, but you can look at historically, getting the code was a first step. The data that we expect that is emerging, when we first got FDA clearance, we had about 10 papers out now. There's almost 100 papers out there, but they're generally smaller scale trials because of the nature of this patient group. Secondarily, the United States Veterans Administration, which has a policy covering all veterans who meet the criteria, they funded, put more than $20 million into a randomized clinical trial. They enrolled 161 patients. They also got interrupted by COVID. The last 20 or so haven't finished follow-up, but that data will become available. So when I look at and then there's 2 other studies that I could put in, a post-market study that we have that we'll be publishing this year, as well as an economic data analysis study that we'll also be bringing out later this year. Those data points build together to the CMS application where we think it is the right time for us to make that application. So there's your inflection point. And when we get that, the time before that's really implemented, it's about another 6 or 12 months. So we've got 1.5 years or so to 2 years to go, frankly, to have those 2 inflection points implemented and operating where we can really look at exactly when will we get to profitability or break even.
So if I'm hearing you right, the CMS application or authorization for the Rewalk in the United States, you're thinking that alone for the Rewalk product with Germany together will be enough to get you to break even?
We will get significant growth. Our path to break even has several paths to it. That is the core. That's most important. But the stroke product, which is very good clinical data, has to get accepted, and we have to go out and be able to demo it in clinics and get it used, which we haven't been able to do. And then the 2 new products, which also fit our population and our call points, well, they have to make some penetration, and we expect that they will. We've begun to see clinics begin to open back up, particularly as the healthcare workers have gotten vaccines. And we're starting to see some patients scheduled again. So we do see that on the horizon that we're going to get active with all 4 products. And if there are other products that can come into the mix, that may help as well. So we've got fairly specific goals on what we think we need to get break even. And we understand that pathway is essential to our sustainability of what Dr. Gopher wanted to do in the first place and allow the paralyzed community to walk again.
Okay, and I don't know if you spoke to once you get past all of these milestones, basically not the total addressable market, but what is the total addressable market? But then also, what percentage of that total addressable market are you gaining are you aiming to capture ultimately?
Well,
On an annual
there
basis?
on the portfolio, I listed several markets. In the spinal cord injury market, the numbers are quite large from the top down. When you're dealing with several 100,000 patients, the addressable market's roughly 100,000. And if you further qualify that down, probably 30,000 or so would perhaps work for a device. If you multiply that times our ASP, which is about $94,000, that's too big a number for me to be able to easily forecast from the top down. You really have to go from the bottom up as to when you can get the patient in, when they can get referred, when you can confirm that all their factors there, when you get them trained. So the path to break even is built on those dynamics, but it's much more bottom up. And it's multiple products, though, not just the spinal cord injury product.
Okay. We got a couple more questions. Keith Resnick, I know it's a small market. Is an Israeli company. Do they have any type of approval from the Israeli HMOs or health ministry?
No, we have not been overly active in Israel. Most of our focus has been on the two major markets. So we don't have a sales force in Israel. It's an R&D team and it's a manufacturing team. So our sales effort is United States and Germany. We are also direct in the UK and have a few distributors, but we're not commercially active in Israel.
Okay. Just a reminder, if you have any questions, you can raise your hand if you want to come on audio or just put it in the chat if you want me to read it out. We have a question from Dino about the Chinese market. He is referring to some Chinese strategic investment last year. If you have any updates on that.
Yeah, the Chinese market numbers are particularly for stroke, extremely large. There's a higher incident rate of stroke there than there is here. We had certainly were very encouraged with a partnership and investment through a company called RWLK Pharma. Timwell was the name of their investment group. They didn't get very far down the road. They never finished the later stage of the investment, and we've ended the agreement with them for now. I don't think they're quite yet ready. We would like to develop an Asian partner, but we're building ourselves to break even with a focus presently on what we know we can control and where we know our data will work, and that's Germany and the United States.
Okay, got it. Ashley, Hyundai, something about Hyundai. Do you know what it's talking about?
There was a press release or story maybe like 2 or 3 days ago about Hyundai working on a car that can also be a walking machine of some type. Sounds interesting, but there's no connection between us and Hyundai specifically. They did pick up some other technologies which I think are of interest. I think it's good to have more entrance into this space, but I think we've got a pretty good lead. Okay.
I don't see any other questions. Did you have any closing kind of comments? Anything else you wanted to mention?
Well, my closing comment would be the technology continues to advance in robotics. And I'll use an example. If any of you have flown a drone, well, 3 years ago, you crashed it 2/3 of the time. They were really hard to do. Now anybody can fly a drone. A lot of those technologies, the sensors, the cameras and things, that they also can affect what's going to wind up being there with walking devices. And if you think of next generation walking devices that are even easier to use, we're going to be able to build on a lot of controller and sensing and video technology that are not that different than automobiles that are self-driving. So this industry will continue to expand in its base. And the other element that I didn't spend a lot of time on, if you have knee osteoarthritis, if you're a patient who is having difficulty with MS and home stroke, those are very large segments where we think these technologies can help. We've been cautious in our investment because of we have to get the core going first, and that takes some patience, and that's where we are right now. But I'm bullish about the long-term future. I can't predict the timing for CMS or what they will actually do and the rate at which we'll solve the COVID problem.
Great, Larry, thank you so much for your time. I'm just going to launch this post poll now that people heard your presentation. After today's presentation, how has your opinion of Rewalk changed? And after today's presentation, would you consider buying more shares of Rewalk? While we're collecting that, I don't know if you want to entertain a final overtime question. Someone just put in the room here. Any interest to ever enter the defense market? I asked that question 2 years ago. Have you changed your stance?
No, we haven't. And whether we're right or wrong, I'm not sure, but I think we're right because the medical takes a lot of focus to get it done correctly, especially the reimbursement side. And for that reason, we focused on medical, and we've got to find a way to make that work. I think if we get profitable as a medical company, then perhaps we could look at using some of our technologies outside of it. But our skills, our talent are people that are well versed in the medical field.
Okay, excellent. Thank you everyone for participating and for that poll. Just stick around for a moment. Larry, thank you. Hopefully you'll come back and join us again in the future. Everyone else, if you can just stick around for a moment and have a couple things to go through. First of all, we want to let you know that we opened a Rewalk research group, dedicated group to researching this stock. If you're a VIP member, you already have the link. The link is also up on the website at StoryTrading.com. Now, upcoming agenda, we got 3 things already. We got the next Wednesday night, another happy hour we're going to miss. We got the CEO and CFO of KMPH. I don't know a lot about it, but I know there was a lot of demand from our members. So it's some sort of biotech company with a PDUFA date coming. So we'll hear from them next Wednesday. The Sunday after that, we got Dan Carlson back again from TW Research, and you see it on our website. His performance is stellar, one of our top stock pickers. And then March 3rd, we got Jonah Lupton. We're running out of these happy hours. They're over, man. We got to come up with another time for happy hour. Jonah Lupton from Lupton Capital is going to be joining us the following Wednesday, 4:30 p.m. So if you're not a VIP member, hop over to StoryTrading.com and click that VIP upgrade button, and you can join us and not miss any of these presentations. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today.